right. Happy Tuesday evening to you. You are in tune with Tone Duncan, and this is True Seekrz. We are IntellectualRadio.com and an iHeart radio channel. For those of you who don't have an opportunity to check me out live, you can come to IntellectualRadio.com and you can see our show or listen to our show there. You can check us out on Facebook. We are always streaming live on Facebook. We are on our YouTube channel. And of course, we are an iHeart radio station. And so you can check us out there. I'd love for you to come over to intellectualradio.com so you can see how awesome of a lineup we have on intellectualradio.com. Today is Tuesday, and there are so many conversations that I really wanted to have with you today. But you know what I decided? I decided that rather than the stuff that I had been talking about, it's time for me to kind of step back a little bit. I mean, it's been a whirlwind. I mean, seriously, a whirlwind. I have been in the process lately of putting out so much content, but the reality is, I think we got to go back a little bit, kind of get to know each other again, because some of you have just now started to come on, and I appreciate it so much. But you need a little bit of info on who the heck this is that you're listening to. First off, let me say this. Thank you for checking me out on this. Thank you for tuning in. If you can, like, comment, and share. Please like, comment, and share. The most important thing that you can do is and share. Let me know you're in here. Say what's up to me so that I can give you a shout out. Get rolling from here. So I want to start off by telling you kind of what my week was like. Every week I like to come back and kind of just give you the lowdown on how my week was and how this week kind of really affected me and how it affects, you know, the way that I see this world that we're cohabitating in together. DJ Red, what's going on? Angie, love you. What's up? What's up? My good brother Kurt, what's happening? Hey, you know I'm going out there tonight. Every night, you know I had to plug you now, Kurt. I got to plug you, brother. Every Tuesday night at Reynolds on the South Side, baby. You get to listen to an extraordinary DJ, one of my favorite people in the whole wide world, the impeccable Mike Dunn. And this is brought to you by my brother Kurt. Kurt has been putting in work for years. The quiet brother with the big smile who's always making sure the party is right. I will be there this evening, and you've got to come out and show some love to, like I said, my favorite DJ in the world, Mike Dunn. And I apologize, brother Mike. I know you're not a DJ. You are a producer. You are a demigod. But I'm going to have to call you a DJ so the other people know who you are. I know you're not a DJ, though, brother. Listen, I want to say what's up to Divinity, my love, my heart, my sweetie. What's going on to my little niecey there and everybody else who's checking it out. Brothers, sisters, listen. I want to start off by talking about an event that I was focused. Hey, check this out. This is something I have to brag about. All right? LeConte, what's up, baby? Was in Hyde Park, you guys. And I had an opportunity to be at the Silver Room Festival. It's a block party, if it's a commerce get together, I don't know what it is. Brother Ray, what's up, brother? Love you to death. I don't know what you call it, but this thing was like 4 blocks wide and long. It had basketball. It had double dutch for the kids. It had 4 stages. It had DJs in every store almost. It had at least 75 vendors with amazing Black artistry. It was phenomenal. And yes, it was in the historic Hyde Park. It was Saturday. And I was blessed to be a part of that amazing show. And I mean, it was a show. You had performing artists on all these stages, DJs. You know how much I love my house music. I'm jamming to the house music. I got my lawn chairs. I'm with my beautiful wife. We're just all having a wonderful time. And you know, I got sad for a second because I saw so many young children who have not gotten an opportunity to see an amassment of educated people. And for a moment, I said, darn it, I should go home and get my child. But when I remembered how much it cost for parking and the fact that I probably wouldn't get none, I said, you know what? I'm going to leave them right there. I'm going to bring them next year. Y'all know what I'm talking about. You are listening to Tone Duncan. This is Truth Seekers, where we take time out the deal, separate the facts from the fact, and give it to you real. Black unity is beautiful, as my brother LeConte says. You've got to understand, it was 32,000 people, and that's a conservative estimate. Grown folks' business. Oh, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And a good friend of mine, a brother, somebody who I've had an opportunity to grow with as we both pursued our directions of happiness, Brother Kenneth Pickett played a very, very important role in the commencement of this event. And I'm very, very happy for somebody who I affectionately call Buster. Buster, I'm so happy for you, and much, much more success. You guys, I wanted to talk to you about the amazing opportunity it is to be around, again, that many ambitious, beautiful Africans living in America. That was an amazing deal. And you know, just outside of that area, of course, there was another spree of shootings. There was another spree of shootings. You know, on 95th, a community organizer, a guy whose life ambition it was to try to rid the streets of more problems, more crimes, and more disparity, gunned down by somebody. I don't know what he did. I don't know if he did anything. I don't know if it was just hate in the game. But these are our real leaders who are out there, boots on the ground, trying to create change and be there for very important children. So I salute that fallen soldier, and I hope that those of you who hear me realize that the work is plenty, but the workers are few. This is a serious deal. You guys, I want to tell you, the first thing that popped up as I was checking around for what's happening in our community was another weird thing. Another weird thing. Listen to this. I mean, seriously. This R. Kelly deal is more than I can even go there with. You hear me? Listen to this. This dude, man. This dude, R. Kelly. He is a weirdo, man. He is a weirdo. He hasn't done anything illegal, but the man walks on the line of morality as if it was a sobriety test. I mean, he paints the markings, stepping ever so gently. Now, this is the same guy who was married to Aaliyah at 15, was in videos of urinating on women. And now he apparently has some kind of cult where the women are so mesmerized by his R. Kelly-ness that they don't even check in with their family anymore. They're off the radar. They're so plugged in, and apparently there's such an order on that they seem programmed to the people who have observed them. Apparently they're even in sex videos and all kind of other strange things. And you know, listen, to each their own when you're dealing with adults. But karma, man, karma, when you utilize your strength to exploit your own people's weakness, that's karma. That's karma. All right, when the only power you have is a richness that was bestowed upon you so that you could make meaningful change in other people's lives, and you take that gift and exploit it as a way to control others, well, I can tell you now, capitalist conservative America, they won't have a problem with you. They've been doing it to us forever. They've been doing it to their own forever. But us, who need each other desperately, who rely on each other, we ain't feeling that. And we pray that the Most High protects us from predators who look like us. I want to say a special shout out to my sister Tammy. I know you in there. I know you in there. So I'm reading about this dude, and the more I'm reading about this dude, the more I'm checking him out, the more I'm realizing this guy is just relentless. I mean, relentless. See, and it reminds me of how abused we as a people are constantly in this country. You know, one of the things that people don't understand is that what made it justifiable to abuse, oppress, and mistreat Africans who were forced into enslavement in America was the rationale that they were doing us a favor, that they were helping our uncivilized people to learn proper Christian civility. You know, I want people to understand this, and I want you to understand this really well. There is no race of people that I have anything less than love for. None. I am not anti-white. I am not anti-Asian. I am not anti-anything. But I am unapologetically committed to raising up our people and dedicating my life to the progression and advancement of our liberation in this oppressive country. So if I sound at times to be frustrated, I'm never frustrated with people. I'm frustrated with policies. I'm frustrated with mindsets. I'm frustrated with spiritual deception from a godless people, but from a godless people. See, because one thing I know is the only ones who don't expect or respect the ability of an individual to change are those, sadly, who experience change in themselves. So I always pray to the divinity around that somehow we stand together, and through that solidarity, we earn and demand the respect that we need from within ourselves to outside of those who see us. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was I wanted to talk about this welfare state. You know, I can't talk about this enough because so many people don't get what happened. They don't see it, they don't understand it, they don't even believe it. So I'm gonna walk this thing back to y'all. So 1860s, this push to free slaves. And there was a primary reason for why there needed to be the end of slavery. One of the primary reasons why slavery had to end was because of the unparalleled power that the South had over the North. The South had all the resources. I want you to understand what I'm saying. The South had all the resources, and the North had all the business connections. So all of the raw material, all of the power of influence was in the South. And that was a dangerous game. So in order to destabilize Southern power, they had to end slavery. They had to make certain that the slaves were not able to become part of the militia for the South. There was this little problem. See, corporations had the right. And so as you understand more about how American immigrants coming to America were being abused by corporations through unfair employment, unfair work conditions, unsafe work conditions. They even had the living arrangements. So when you went and worked for a corporation, they basically, you lived in their houses and you got money that they created. It wasn't even real currency. They created money and gave it to you. It's like an IOU or something. So people would strike against this. And so what they would do is they would bring in other people. So what would end up happening is corporations would lose money in all this strikes and all this other stuff. So they appealed to the government and said, we need the same respect and right as people so that they can't keep affecting our ability to create income. So they were given the same rights as man. Well, the problem is the white man said, what man do you have the same rights as? Surely it can't be a white man. So in order to stabilize that argument, they had to make blacks and whites of the same right. That allowed corporations who financed all of that to be able to get the rights. All you have to do is look at the Supreme Court records. All you have to do is find out who won cases right after the 13th Amendment was signed. No black people won any cases in the U.S. Supreme Court. Only corporations did. That's how you know right there what the business was about. But see, now here's the deal. The deal is that a lot of us don't understand that the 13th Amendment, because the Emancipation Proclamation was not real. So some of you may know what the Emancipation Proclamation is. Some of you may not quite remember, but the Emancipation Proclamation was supposed to have been what Abraham Lincoln decreed in order to free the slaves. But the truth is it never freed the slaves. What it did was it incentivized slaves who were against the North to rebel against their slave masters, because the rule is if you were against the North, then the federal government determined that you were no longer bound by slavery. This was only a way to minimize the ability for blacks in the South to abet the Southerners in the fight against the North, which the Southerners were kicking the North's butt, just so you know. And this is the reason why the Emancipation Proclamation came out. But see, when the 13th Amendment actually finally did drop, there was a major loophole. And this is what I want to talk to you guys about today. That major loophole was that no man was allowed to be enslaved. He was found guilty of a crime, and the punishment of that crime was forced labor. See, now we're starting to talk about the black laws. So the black codes that happened right after, months after the 13th Amendment came into effect. There was codes in states and in counties that said basically, you know what? If you don't have a job with a black man, with a white business every 30 days and have a signed contract, you were going to go to jail for being a vagabond, for being a wasted person, for being somebody who was outside of civility. So as soon as you went to jail, then of course the sheriff would auction off your labor to whomever they wanted to. Because you got to understand something, that when the Civil War was over, the South was in peril. They were completely devastated. Their number one source of work production was the enslaved African. So how did they fix this? By taking all of the blacks that they could and incriminating them, incarcerating them, and then basically re-enslaving them. So if it was a law for you to have to have been working, if it was a law for you to have had to have been working, then how do you negotiate and demand good wages? You could just flat out go to jail and get no wages. This is what they was up against. And yes, LeConte, you know, I be always checking out your page, and I love the amount of information you bring. Sometimes I use it to go back just as a reference so that I'm solid in all the things that I'm talking about. And I'm loving it. I'm loving it right there. And like my man Max says, there was no gathering. You were not allowed to gather together. No, not at all. No, 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 no. That congregating, any kind of that mob action stuff, you were going to jail immediately. I don't care if it was just a family of y'all coming from church. That's mob action. Y'all gathering together. It's time to break it up. All the different things. You know, there was a law in the books that said you couldn't be playing games with white folks. I want you to understand what that meant. That meant if I thought you was playing games with me when I'm talking to you or telling you to do something, that was a prosecutable offense. See, but what did incarceration look like at that time? Do you know that during the Black Codes, do you know that we made up over 50% of all prisoners in America because of the Black Codes? I want you to know something. It was then that started a disgusting precedent. See, then they had a group of people. I want you to know about these, the Freedmen's Bureau. How many of y'all know about the Freedmen's Bureau? See, the Freedmen's Bureau was a group of Sambos. Y'all know Sambos from Uncle Tom's Cabin, right? Stop calling people Uncle Tom. It shows you've never read the book. See, these Sambos would go around town to town and get our African ancestors to write their names on an agreement of labor. And then they would sell these off. Sell these off. Think about this. To white people as contracts where you're almost an indentured servant. And part of the agreement was you couldn't even negotiate after you signed the contract. Violation of the contract, and then obviously subject to go to jail. That was your people who did that. Do you understand what I'm saying? That was your people. Special shout out to my beautiful wife, and I already said wonderful things about you, my love. You're going to have to go back and hear how many wonderful things I said. Well, anyways, so the Freedmen's Bureau would actually give a little relief to you. See, that was the carrot at the end of the stick to get you to sign these contracts. This was very sickening. It's very sickening. See, but you know, we fought hard. We did everything we could. We opposed it. After a while, Jim Crow and lynching came in. So how many of you guys know about the original movie, Birth of a Nation? When they depicted black people coming out of the Civil War as being cannibals, barbarics, being rapists. See, that was the number one worry they had. I want you to understand this. The number one fear was the mongrelling of the white race. Little black and white babies. See, it was a fear. Now, it wasn't a fear when white people were impregnating black slaves, enslaved Africans, so that they could sell them, which makes me so mad when I check y'all out and I hear somebody call somebody a half-breed. You know what blows my mind is how much we have been taught to divide like that. You have to understand, if it wasn't for a monetary gain, there would have been no half-breeding in this country. You would not have white blood in 99.99999 Africans in America. No, because here's what you got to get. You got to get that we as a people were told what was and wasn't white. Blacks didn't discriminate off color. Come on. That was something that was taught to us. You weren't told what you were. More importantly, you were told what you were not. Okay, so here's the deal. The deal is that we need to start looking at what ended up happening from there. Because after the Jim Crow, after the lynching, after all of these atrocities, then came just common segregation. Common segregation. Do you know that every one of your black leaders that stood up for the human rights of Africans in America and were willing to go to the United Nations to complain, do you know every one of them were killed? I want you to think about that. Every one of them were killed. Malcolm, Martin, a host of others that I won't even try and tell you because some of you sadly will be like, I never heard of them, but it's all right. It's all right. We have to understand our people were highly intelligent then, and they had a move that caused them to be exterminated by Hoover, J. Edgar Hoover, who started off as a police officer who was anti-black progression in any ways, who ended up being the head of the FBI, who, I mean, think about this, you guys. When you think of white leadership, you rarely hear the mentioning of the FBI. But when you talk about any leadership in the black community, all you ever hear about is the FBI. The FBI is a part of every and anything in black progression. They infiltrate, they confiscate, and they obliterate from the inside. I'm talking Marcus Garvey. I'm talking Malcolm X. I'm talking Martin Luther King. I'm talking Huey Newton. I'm talking everyone. Everyone. Because there has been a war against the advancement of the African male in America since day one. Day one. See, because they know something. They know that the way they have mistreated the white woman, there's no way in the world she wasn't going to be in love and wanting to assimilate with the African male. And it's been a war against that African male since the very day we stepped foot as enslaved Africans on this soil. And oh yeah, for the Africans that were here, the minute they saw you and saw the way that you conducted yourself, there was a hit on you quicker than you believe. So we know this. We know this. And how do you know that it's been an eradication attempt on blacks, black men? Let's think about this. What's the first thing they did? First thing they did, first you got to look for a common game plan. How did they destabilize the Indian? Alcohol. Didn't they do that? They destabilized them through drugs and alcohol. Now that you know that, let's follow the paradigm. Switch it over to Africans. What they do to Africans? They used alcohol. There's an alcohol that's only found in African communities. You know what that is? I know you know. Malt liquor. Malt liquor. You know, right now today we're spending $4 billion a year on malt liquor. Do you know that? $4 billion as an African American people. and I use that term liberally, 4 billion a year. It's not regular alcohol. No, this stuff is going to destroy your guts. It's going to destroy your ability to think. It's going to cause you to be drunker than you ever meant to be, which means you're going to be in trouble for your actions more regularly. But then comes the drugs, right? Where did Africans in America get heroin in the 60s? And what was the net result of heroin? Wasn't it mass incarceration? Didn't we go from having 300,000 inmates to, by the time the heroin epidemics of the 60s hit, didn't we go all the way up to 700,000 when they tried a new move? You remember what the new move was right after heroin? A lot of you don't. Do you remember what happened to the Tuskegee soldiers? You remember when they injected them with syphilis? See, there's been a war against black males since then. But you know what they tried this time? But there was a major problem. They didn't know how many European Americans were having intercourse and sharing in illicit drugs. And that got scary because they ended up with an epidemic. Oh, Houston, we have a problem. So they said, you know what? We're not going to do that anymore. Let's bring it back. This time, we're doing crack cocaine. Crack cocaine. They knew that blacks were decimated. How did they know this? Let's go back to the Reagan administration. When Reagan came in, Reagan said very simply, the country is in an economic downfall. We are almost as bad as the Great Depression. This is what your guy said. This is Reagan. Reagan said we can no longer afford welfare and entitlement programs. Think about this. Now we're talking about the 80s. Now remember, the programs didn't start until the 70s. 10 years into them, all of a sudden somebody had to go. Y'all remember who it was? Right. It was the black man. He had to leave the welfare program and go right where? To the mass incarceration program. See, because the way they saw it was like this. If we got to pay for these people because we can't employ them, we haven't invested in their education, we haven't given them any wealth to create their own businesses, and we sure don't want to pay them to live in our country, it's too expensive. Let's put them all together, I'll lock them up. Then I don't have to pay as much. I just have to feed them. And I don't have to feed them well. I don't have to give them anything. But first, I have to portray them like they're evil. So all of a sudden you start seeing every single night some picture of a black man doing some kind of crime. Some picture of some black man doing some kind of crime. You know, disproportionately showing Africans as violent in America, even though every FBI statistic said no. Trying to show us as rapists, even though every single FBI statistic proved that it was white America that was raping black women. And it was white America that was raping white women. It wasn't us. But they see, going back to the birth of a nation, the reason why the Ku Klux Klan went from a few hundred people to being something like the biggest organization, to whereas in 1950, during the Democratic Convention, almost every one of the people who were running for office were in some ways connected with the KKK. You gotta understand. See, when you look at the timeline, it's not as shocking to you. For y'all, and I know some of y'all want to believe so badly that this is your country and everybody's nice and everybody's good and, you know, they all got our back and everything like that. But it's not the case. It's not the case. So after crack, what happened? After crack, they gave us a whole lot of guns. See, because what they found out in the 90s, when there was such serious territorial violence, sell drugs, was that the guns were killing more people than the crack and was putting more people in jail. And nobody argues with a gun offender. Violent crime offenders are non-negotiably evil to all people. Now we look like the good guys. And of course, the privatization of all of the prisons all went part and parcel. You got to understand this. You got to understand this. Now, how do you know that this was a plan? Ask yourself what happened to the conscious rap. Now, I'm not talking about people who self-finance their ability to sell music, right? Because we know people like that. We know people who self-finance. They are doing it because they have to. You guys, it's your boy Tone Duncan. I'm going to take a quick break real quick. When I come back, we are going to talk about this. Remember, like, share, and comment. You're listening to Tone Duncan. This is Truth Seekrz. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. All right, you guys, we're back. You're listening to Tone Duncan. This is Truth Seekrz. Every Tuesday at 7 o'clock on IntellectualRadio.com. We are an iHeart channel. I want to thank you so much for spending a couple minutes with me and talking about what's real. We seek the truth, no matter what. I want to say a special shout out to another one of the real truth seekers out here, one of them people that are putting in work, trying to uplift our people suffering from this sickness. Just, I can't even give the right words. It just hurts my heart. How many of us know somebody who's deeply affected by cancer? How do you even hold your faith? The thing about cancer is that it beats you up when your spirits are down. I want to give a special shout out to Lady Rochelle. She is always bringing hope, bringing love, and bringing wisdom, because we have to stick together. Brother, hey, LeConte snapping over here because, of course, Woodrow Wilson, yes, this idiot, he did a private screening. Would you tell it? Did a private screening and gave the most profound praise. That was the first movie that was ever shown in the White House. Do you know that Roger Ebert gave it 5 stars? One of the most profound movies ever. Do you know right now, if you go to Rotten Tomatoes, it's got like a 98.9 rating? Can you believe that? Sickness. Sickness. So you guys, what's ended up happening now is that there's over 2 million incarcerated citizens of America before. That even though we're 5% of the world, we hold 25% of all the incarcerated people. I mean, 1 out of every 4 prisoners are in this land of freedom. 1 out of 4 are right here, right now. And that doesn't include the amount of people on parole. Do you know? I mean, do we have to talk about Bill Clinton? How he come up, and in order for him to beat Bush, typically the Democrats, they were lighter on the death penalty. They were lighter on mistreating criminals. They believed in parole and all this stuff. Man, this dude, man, this spineless idiot made the 3 times you're out. 3 strikes. You had people in there for all kind of simple stuff. Habitual criminal act. You got to understand what the black male is up against. And any woman who is not a sworn crossover, she can get it too. Oh, she can get it. Okay? Something strange happened in 1990. Really checked out the African male in America. I'm going to say something that's going to blow your mind. In 1990, right about the time, think about this now, about the time of Rodney King, black folks had it with the whole white and finding a way to make it in white America concept. Do you notice that's when they stopped putting perm in their hair, stopped wearing jerry curls, stopped trying to have a European facade, and they started to embrace their Africanism? You know, they no longer wanted to look white. No more pencil curls and jerry curls, and broke trying to open up a black men's hair care service. They don't buy anything. They're fine the way they were made. We don't do it anymore. We refuse to look like our oppressors as a collective. Yes, I know there's a few Sambos. We know about those Sambos. We know about them. Talk to you guys about is I want to talk to you about what we need to do now. Too often we're talking about the problem and we forget to address the solution. See, the solution is getting your people, my people, our people to understand that we're not helping ourselves when we spend $2 billion in Air Jordans every year as a people. You understand I just said billions, right? Billions. So even though we think we're buying something that promotes Africanism in America, it doesn't. It doesn't. See, when segregation was lifted, there was a known fact going on. And that is that Africans in America controlled $20 billion of annual income. And I told you, ever since slavery was abolished, there has been a problem with money in this country. So, of course, segregation so that they could pour in all of those African dollars that used to go to our own companies, our own businesses, communities. 98 cents now out of every dollar leaves our neighborhoods, never to come back. See, money is supposed to bounce. Let me explain it like this. Dollars, and I go to my black dry cleaners with my $10. Well, my black dry cleaners then takes $10 and he goes over to the black grocery store and he buys some things he needs from the house. Well, the black grocer, he'll take the $10 and take his family to the black movie theater. Well, then the black movie theater, he'll take his $10 and take his family over to a black restaurant so that they can get some food. You see, that's called bouncing money in a community. That does not happen anymore. How do you stabilize a community? Have money that bounces within. You don't. You end up with neighborhoods, sparse, problematic neighborhoods. We can control that. See, that's our ability. We have that strength. We can do that. See, another thing we can do. See, we can start to become more organized. And let me tell you something. Here's the thing. Okay, we are dealing with a high level of sickness. When a man shoots another man who he does not hate, that's a sickness. See, to me, there's no difference between the gun murder epidemic than the crack epidemic. See, because what you need in order to pull this off, a group, a race of people that have lost their hope for prosperity. See, one of the most important factors. Do any of you guys ever read Willie Lynch? Do any of you guys ever check out what you have to do in order to subdue a group? You have to take their pride. You have to decimate their men. You have to belittle their women. And you have to regulate their children. What do you call mass incarceration in a welfare state? Right. See, I'm going to tell you what the sickness is. The sickness is we as African Americans, and again, I use that term loosely, we males, we hurt each other because we're the only ones we can hurt as we think right now. This goes further than that. I'm going to tell you a sickness with my sisters who I love. And believe me, I don't put my sisters down. No, I won't do it because it's all sickness. But do you realize that our sisters are spending $9 billion annually on hair weave and relaxers that are going to other people who don't even shop with you, won't even respect you as people, and you are flooding them with your money so that you can look like somebody else? I asked the question on Facebook. I wanted to see how many Africans in America, males, require their woman to look European. And you know what I got? None. Because most guys don't find that appealing. See, I've been a guy my whole life. I've owned barber salons. I've owned hair salons. I've owned all these things. I mean, I've had salons of 22 chairs and better. And I've talked to people. And I've asked them. I've seen the guys. The guys, they thought the women coming out of the barber chairs were just as attractive as the women coming out of the hair salon chairs. See, I know this. So, sisters, trust me. You gotta believe you're not dressing your hair like that for no man. I had a sister who told me if I dressed my hair Afrocentrically, my man would want somebody else. Well, I think you should want another man. because that's not cracking. We need to find our self-love. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong. African women have adorned their hair with some of the most amazing hairstyles. But we don't have to do it like that. See, we have to get out of this depravity. We have to get out of this sickness. We have to get out of this need to look like someone else in order to feel better. That's escapism. That's no different than drugs. That's no different than hatred. Now, for some of you sisters, for you, it's just fashion. For you, you haven't connected the dots. You haven't dug deep enough. And I'm not trying to offend you. And I have no offense for you. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I just ask you to find the love and ask yourself, did you need it in order to be as beautiful as God made you? If you feel you did, then all right. Again, I'm not going to fight you because the reality is we don't have problems. We share a common issue. We are sick out here from a post-traumatic stress disorder. We're dying at a faster rate. It's a reason why we can't find happiness. It's the reason why we can't think progressively, because we're constantly living defensively. And I will never attack. I won't attack somebody who finds a religious escape. I won't attack somebody who finds a European escape. I won't attack you, but I will bring it to your attention. You know, which brings me to these social media haters that I've had an opportunity to connect with. A lot of people, they don't realize that Africans in America are of diverse thinking. See, when you sound differently, like how I blast Barack Obama, all of a sudden people don't get it. They feel as though I'm attacking him and doing those who attack him a service by being on their side. And I say, listen, I don't attack the man Barack Obama. I attack how little he did for us. That's what I'm talking about. It's not about, I don't dislike Barack. I love Barack Obama as a representative of our Africans in America. Something that a lot of people don't know. I understand that Barack Obama, during his administration, and mind you, when there was no longer a need for him to impress anybody because he was in his second term, had he allowed the UN to come over. And when the UN was over, the UN was checking to see what the situation was with racial inequality of Africans in America. And you know, they first off in their report, and we'll talk about this later. I have a full segment that I'm going to do at another time on reparations. But in their report, they said that they found a lot of closed doors against them. A lot, like the penitentiary system was not allowing them access to information, wasn't allowing them to see the penitentiaries. A lot of things that you would expect in these like communist America was doing to the United Nations. But the United Nations still put out their reports and said, you know what? These people have been seriously wrong, not for slavery, because you will never be able to repay. I said you will never be able to repay for their enslavement. But after they were freed, Jim Crow, lynching, black codes, segregation, civil rights violations, redlining of property, unjustly giving opportunities to every single person but us, incarceration, police brutality, and the inadequacy in our educational system. And reparations are most certainly in order. But you know, Barack said, no. I want you to understand this. Other countries have given reparations. You want me to tell you? America gave Japan reparations. Huh? Did you know that? When they were unfairly incarcerated, interned. They were given $20,000 each. Okay, $60 billion package of reparations to them. You know who else got reparations? Slave owners. You know who else got reparations? You ready for this? The Cherokee Indians. They were given reparations to free blacks from enslavement because they had almost as many slaves as the Europeans did. All y'all so-called Cherokees, I just want to point that out to you. You need to study. You need to read new books and understand the truths of what's going on. And I don't hate them. Atrocities are no longer here. I have no hatred for any person. I love white people. I hate a bigot mindset. I hate a racist spirit. I hate an oppressive society. But there are good people everywhere, and I love them deeply. You guys, I got to get off this mic. I appreciate and love you all. But you have to understand that in order for us to change this thing, we got to do three things. We have to become community organizers and political activists in our community. And the way you do this is very simple. Remember these three steps. The very first step is you market your organization to your immediate community. You market it. You say, listen, we're doing a particular thing in our community. We're going to focus on just find one specific thing that's directly affecting your neighborhood. Not your city, but your neighborhood. People to meet up and talk about it over a free dinner. So the first thing you do is you market the meal. The second thing you do, and I want you to think about this. The second thing you do is you feed not just the meal, but your plan during the meal. And the third thing you do before they leave, you tell them when the next meal is and offer them to bring a friend. This is how you grow. It's real simple. 1, 2, 3. I want to talk to you guys on Facebook. Please send me comments, share this, like this, be a part of this. You've been listening to Tone Duncan every Tuesday, 7 p.m. It's your boy with you guys. Love y'all to death. Peace.